Well, Mandy Kelly, we are going to hear your story today.
Thank you.
And we're going to start when you met your husband.
So I met my husband, Mr. Rami Gamal, on a night out in September 2013.
In Dubai.
In Dubai. I had been working there and he had just moved to the country at the time.
Right. So what were you doing in Dubai? Were you having a good time? Was it a nice encounter?
I moved to Dubai in 2009 and I was working there as a teacher, and I had a great circle of friends, a great job, fabulous travel opportunities, and life was pretty good. However, things unfortunately changed drastically when I thought I had met this charming and what I thought was at the time a trustworthy individual.
So, how long were you together in Dubai before you came back to Ireland?
So we were together for about 4 years before we decided to move back to Ireland. He had visited Ireland the year before and met my family, and both him and I were in the agreement that Ireland was the best place for us to set up a family. And obviously...
Now, he was Egyptian.
Exactly,
Egyptian guy. And had you travelled to Egypt to meet his family?
Yes, I had travelled to Egypt in 2014 to meet his family.
Okay, and how did you get on or find them?
They were welcoming. Looking back, I could have been a little bit more wary on his motives. It's no different than any woman or man that has been through domestic abuse. These individuals lure you in through a phase of love bombing, and then they slowly devalue you and degrade you.
And had you had that from the beginning, that sort of love bombing thing?
It wasn't very loud, but it was slowly. I can't even explain to you. It was done in a very manipulative, very carefully planned out manner, and obviously when they know when they have you, that's when they start to really degrade you. And I can definitely say, and a lot of from my research on narcissistic abusive behaviour, I have come to learn that once he or she, as in the narcissist, enters into a marriage, but more specifically, I can say that once I had my first son, that's when the behaviour completely changed.
So we'll come on to that in a sec, but before that, I suppose, there's going to be cultural differences between you guys, but you get over that. You're in a comfortable enough relationship that you are looking towards your future. You're looking to settle down, presumably to buy a house, set up family, and
I totally agree. Like there's vast differences in culture, but having immersed myself in the culture for so many years in Dubai, I was quite aware of the differences and what I had to agree to. However, I do genuinely believe, and having, being around lots of different people that have married into different cultures and have interfaith marriages, a lot of the times it is completely down to the individual. There are many successful interfaith and intercultural marriages.
And where did you marry? In Ireland, was
it? We got married in July 2017.
Okay, so when you moved back here to Ireland, and then you're going to start your family.
Yes. So we moved back in June 2017, and we got married in July 2017. And like any other couple that moves back to Ireland, we did face challenges with trying to find accommodation and trying to find employment opportunities. However, things did start to settle in March 2018. And then, of course, my first son, Zane, was born in May of 2018. And that's when things really started to, our relationship started to deteriorate. He knew he had me, as in I was a mother with a very young son, and we didn't have an awful lot of money at the time as well.
So was he the breadwinner into the household?
No, he wasn't. I was. And obviously from having to take unfortunately unpaid maternity leave, because I wasn't back in the country long enough to apply for maternity benefit, a lot of pressure was put on me. 6 weeks after our first son was born, I took up part-time work to ensure that there was more money coming into the house. His controlling behaviour started to really be enforced, isolating me away from my family and my friends, knowing that I had a very young baby to look after, being incredibly critical as well about my parenting skills, knowing that I am a very kind of quiet and introverted person. He knew the tricks to use, but obviously I was so busy.
This doesn't feel like it's a cultural thing at all.
It's not a cultural thing.
A personality style with him.
Well, of course, and to be honest with you, because I was so busy trying to raise my young son and trying to, improve my career, to ensure that, more money was coming into the house, that there was less pressure on him. Mm-hmm. I ignored the red flags, and a lot of victims of domestic abuse, they say the same things, that they completely ignore it because they have them, the abuser has you so sucked in that you completely ignore. And another thing as well, I would have been scared as well to say too much.
Mm-hmm. Because to challenge him.
Yes, because obviously he sometimes had incredibly aggressive outbursts, and he sometimes would obviously invade my personal space, and just
he scared you.
He scared me. Yeah. So, but obviously, I had a very young baby at the time, and I just wanted to keep the peace. And, as a victim of domestic abuse, you always are thriving, for them their behaviour to improve and for it to go back to the way that it was at the beginning of the relationship. That's how they trick and manipulate their victim, the victim.
Do you get any kindness?
You see, if the abuse was every day, you would leave. But when you get sprinkles of kindness, it can be very, very difficult to. They almost distort your reality. And again, from doing my research, this is what they do. They try to distort your reality, trying to question, trying to gaslight you continuously, trying to isolate you, even using really disgusting manipulative tactics like, preventing you from socialising so that you can only really rely on them.
Isolating you from your family and friends. So Zayn is born in 2018 and Kareem
is born in November 2020.
November 2020. So we're in that awful
COVID.
L word,
yes.
The lockdowns and stuff. So you were somebody who was in an abusive, coercive relationship during that time that we were hearing a lot of increases in domestic violence and stuff like that. During that time when families were forced into isolation from everybody else and away from their work and away from whatever it was that they were able to have as an outside influence. So what was that like? And you were pregnant, obviously.
It was incredibly difficult, especially when I was so fortunate to be able to rely on my work colleagues as that circle of support. And even the fact that I used to go into work and I could escape some of the issues that I was facing behind my front door. And I do believe that even my work colleagues, comment that they knew that something wasn't right. But during COVID, obviously from working from home, I did feel an awful lot more isolated, and I probably hid an awful lot more as well.
So his family are in, is it Cairo? They're in Egypt, yeah. And there's a decision made at some point that together they haven't seen the new baby.
Yes.
I presume the airport's open, the country's open, you get to go to, and that's a normal thing to do.
Of course, like from living in Dubai, which is a transit hub, I have observed and witnessed so many families traveling multiple times per year, to be reunited with their families. And I may add that my ex-partner's father had passed away in July 2020, and I had encouraged him to travel as he had visited Cairo in March 2020. And this is when I believe that the planning had began for this to occur. As you can imagine, Nicola, I have a lot of time to think. So in July 2020, his dad passed away, and due to the COVID restrictions, he was prevented from travelling, even though that opportunity and option was open to him. And of course, I was accused of preventing this, which is completely and utterly untrue. It's false. So once the travel restrictions were lifted, he had mentioned that it would be a good opportunity for our two sons and I to travel to Cairo, to have the opportunity for his mother and his two brothers to meet with our two sons, which was ultimately one of the worst decisions I have ever made, and unfortunately, I did that thinking that it was in the best interests of my two children, and obviously thinking that these were really good, honest, hardworking people that deserved to see their grandchildren.
And you had no fears that anything was going to happen as far as you were concerned.
To be honest with you,
were you going on a short holiday, was it? And
it was for 2 weeks. We were to return on the 12th of March.
Of 21?
Of 2022. So I was, even there was a part of me thinking to myself, okay, so, things have settled with a family home now. He had a good job. I had a good job. The two boys were being well looked after. My son Zane was supposed to start school in September. So things had started to really settle for us. Both of us were in a good enough position in that we did have money to be able to enjoy the normal things in life. So there were no warning signs, and I did think that if he had the opportunity to go and meet his family, that he would de-stress and that he would, we would return to Ireland, and that he would be in a much better place.
You thought things were going to change for the better?
Just that I believed that it was going to be in his best interest to be able to see
his family, a positive thing for you all to do.
Exactly.
So what was the holiday like for you?
So to add, on the night that we arrived, and I believe, looking back and having a lot of time to reflect, he had a very angry outburst in the holiday apartment that we were staying in. Even the fact that I had wanted for us to stay in a hotel just because of the fact that we had been stuck in a house for 2 years, and he refused to stay in a hotel, saying that it would be better for his family to be able to mingle with us in a holiday apartment. As in, it shows the planning that was involved, because he knew that he would have been able to, enforce his plans correctly. Whereas in a hotel, I would have been able to avail of help.
So explain to us what happened.
So during the holiday, we were there, as I told you, for 2 weeks, and I did get to meet with his family, and we went to malls, and we did some tourist things, but his behaviour was a bit odd. However, I didn't pass much remarks on it because I was quite busy with 2 young boys, and I just thought, okay, I'll just try and keep the peace here until, we get back to Ireland. So on the 11th of March, the day before we were supposed to return to Ireland, I had woken early to organise both my 2 sons and I to ensure that we had the day to spend with his family before travelling early the following morning. Our flight was at 2 a.m. So he had asked me to go and have coffee with him and to leave our 2 boys at the apartment. Something just felt a little bit off. And
with a relative or something?
No, with him. And I kind of coaxed him into telling me what the issue was. And he told me that he didn't want to go back to Ireland. And worse still was that the boys would not be returning with me. So even when I say this, I can still feel some of the emotions in my body, as in my stomach is actually feeling like churning. My throat is actually starting to close off just even thinking of it. I can't even explain to you the panic that went through my body.
This conversation happened in the apartment?
Yes.
The kids were there with the 2 of you?
I was carrying my son Kareem in my arms, and my other son was playing outside with his cousin. And I actually nearly collapsed with just the complete and utter shock of it.
And you knew he was very serious. He wasn't. Yes. You weren't basically going to return to Ireland with your boys?
No. So because of the COVID restrictions, I knew that him and I were going to have to get negative COVID tests to be able to return to Ireland. So there had been a health centre near where our holiday apartment was. So I had encouraged him to walk with me to the centre, and his mum was to mind our 2 sons. And I decided that my basic first reaction was not to overreact and to keep calm and to try to see sense to why he is saying this. So whilst walking to the health centre, I try to coax him into believing that when we go home, we will sit and we will talk about this, and we may make future plans to see what is in the best interests of our 2 sons, and for us, even knowing deep down that the best interests of my son would always have been served in Ireland. So walked to the health centre, and he refused point blankly to get a COVID test. And him and I had an argument, and he ran off. And because we were in a very large compound, I found it quite difficult at the beginning to grasp where I was. But he had made his way back before I did, and got our 2 sons and his mother and put them into the rental car, the car that we had rented for the duration of our holiday. Once I came back, obviously, I wasn't able to get back into the holiday apartment. So my initial reaction was, the only thing I had was my phone. So my initial reaction was just to call him, and he refused to answer the phone. I called him multiple times, and he then messaged me to say that he was going to another city and that I would never see my boys again. And I told him to calm down. I tried to make contact with his mum, and I learned later on that he had actually taken the phone away from his own mother. So this is the individual that we are dealing with.
Nightmare.
Yes.
Absolute nightmare beyond belief.
So eventually I got him coaxed to come back to the apartment, and I thought that he would come back to with both Zayn and Kareem. So he opens the apartment door. We walk into the apartment together and we start arguing, obviously. He then gathers some of his belongings and just leaves the apartment, locking the apartment. So I'm there on my own and I have to make very, very drastic, quick decisions. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that I did was I rang the Irish consulate in Cairo, to which I got an answering machine. And then I rang the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs.
You knew then, and you have no regrets about the fact that you knew you couldn't do this on your own. You had to get home, you had to get help, and you had to go down the official route legally in order to get your kids back, which you will get your kids back. I mean, you haven't seen them for a long time.
I haven't seen my children in 2.5 years. And to be honest with you, Nicola, I can't even explain to you because of what happened in the following days leading up to me having to leave. I tried everything and I was threatened. I was told that he was going to have me arrested. He told me that my family and I deserved. He made threats against my family and I. He made statements such as that he wanted to physically hurt me, only that he had promised his mother that he wouldn't touch me. Other statements including the fact that the only way that I would ever see my boys again was if I returned to Ireland to sell the family home and to go back. And he made the one thing that still sticks in my mind is him telling me that our marriage was like a business contract. And it just completely and utterly, it just shattered me that this was a con man, genuinely. And I looked at him and I just knew this is a con man who has played a very, very manipulative, nasty, horrible game on both his two young boys and I.
Did you worry, or would you worry, would he be kind to the boys? Is he a capability of that? Like a narcissist, they will say, sees their children nearly as an extension of themselves, so they will love them as much as they love themselves.
My two sons are unfortunately just being used as pawns, as you know, he's still thinking in his head that he has control over me. And the most horrific part of the story is that when Irish High Court proceedings were initiated here in Ireland, he had made a written statement, which I may add was notarized by an Egyptian law firm. And in his statement, he had requested a 6-figure sum.
Right.
Yeah, but he thought he was being very clever in disguising this as compensation for the psychological damage that I had caused both him and our two sons. And obviously, having done my research now, this is the same game that these individuals play during High Court proceedings.
So here in Ireland, what happened here? Did we seek, there's no extradition treaty obviously with Egypt, did we seek through political means to reach out to Egyptians, to talk to them, to try and settle this essentially? Or did you have to go down a heavy-handed legal route?
So I really have had to go down a heavy-handed legal route in both countries and both jurisdictions, which has been absolutely horrific and costly to add to it. But in January 2023, after having been awarded the High Court order here in Ireland, it gave me room for the Irish government.
Is the order for the custody of your children?
It was for the immediate return.
Immediate return. Because
she was adamant that my two sons were unlawfully removed from the state. And I must add as well that she even went to the bother of awarding the costs to me, which obviously never occurred. However, I think that the Honourable Justice Mary Rose Garty was trying to make a very loud and clear fact to him that this was about two innocent Irish children. So it opened up the opportunity for me to proceed the diplomatic route, and in January 2023, Irish diplomats did actually meet with representatives from the Ministry of Justice in Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Now, the legal proceedings also were simultaneously happening in Egypt, where you've been awarded full custody of these children.
Yes, I have been awarded.
So Egypt, as a country, as you know, has not turned its back on you as the mother of these children and has recognised what's happened.
And I may add as well, Nicola, they have examined the case very carefully, obviously because I'm a foreign mother and because, you know, there's cultural differences. There would be more, I feel that there would be more of an examination into the fact that I would be able to raise my two sons as Muslims and that I can care for my own kids. And I think it was very clear as well that I wasn't going to marry anytime soon, that my primary concern as mother of my children was to ensure that my children were in my care and that I was a full physical and mental I have the full physical and mental capacity to raise two young boys.
So where does it stand at the moment? You have custody of the boys, but they're in the custody as such unlawfully of your ex-husband, who is where?
In Cairo, in Egypt.
Which is a huge city.
Of 11 million people.
Right.
Yes. So even regardless of the fact that I have been awarded custody, the custody order has to be enforced. And unfortunately, efforts were made to enforce the order. However, my ex-partner has used the old trick in the book and has avoided accountability by deciding to move from place to place. However, in April of this year, my mother-in-law decided to stick her nose out and apply for custody of my two sons, even believing that she is above Sharia law, because even with Sharia law, the custody goes to the mother. So only very recently her...
So that, when you say she took her nose out, that she had to indicate her location?
Yes, exactly.
Address, etc.?
Exactly. And she also informed authorities that my two sons were in her care. And having medical records to show that she is not physically capable of looking after my sons. I can't even elaborate on the concern that I have for my two children. And of course, being in the hands of individuals who believe that I, being the mother, should not have access to my two children.
And what has been said about you, no doubt.
Yeah.
So that's weeks ago, July, when she raised a hand and showed where she is she says...
Sorry, that was in April, Nicola. However,
that was in April of this year.
However, the custody hearing was adjourned until only very recently, and unfortunately, she didn't even appear for her own custody hearing, which I am absolutely horrified with.
And why would she be looking for custody of them to legalise that process? Would you think?
To completely devalue me.
And the orders you have from the courts.
Exactly. And obviously their main motive is financial gain,
which
is very loud and clear now. Even I would like your listeners to know, very recently, I consider myself to have been very reasonable throughout the whole process, having initiated even communication with Egyptian Islamic clerics who are known to help resolve these issues. Unfortunately, this offer of mediation was ignored. And I also offered to have both his Irish arrest warrant and his European arrest warrant dropped. And of course, the exchange of me having care of my 2 sons. However, that was also ignored. So it's incredibly loud and clear to both the public, the Irish government and the Egyptian government that these are individuals that actually believe that they are above the law and are still holding my 2 sons for ransom. Only recently, Nicola, as well, I received communication from Irish Revenue, which my ex-partner had reached out to seeking a tax return. So it's very loud and clear that essentially my 2 children are what we would state are actually being held as hostages.
For sure. And what age are they now, the boys?
So Zayn is 6. Zayn was only 3 years old when this happened. He would have been turning 4 in May, and Kareem was only 16 months, and he will turn 4 now in November.
So, I mean, you're thinking about them every waking minute, I've no doubt, and sleeping. Is the Irish government doing enough for you? Is there anything anybody can do for you?
Oh, there's plenty that can be done, Nicola, especially when my children have been unlawfully removed from the state. My children are Irish-born citizens. They have Irish passports. They entered Egypt with their Irish passports. So I am very grateful of the efforts to date. Only very recently, Mr. Micheál Martin raising the case once again with the Egyptian Foreign Minister. However, I am starting to get a little bit exhausted from having utilised and following meticulously the advice that was given to me by both the Irish and the Egyptian authorities. And obviously,
these children are young, and every day, every week is
exactly
a huge thing.
Even only recently, we found out that there are no school records for my oldest son, Zayn. So he should be going into his 3rd year in primary school. So it's...
So in other words, both the Irish government and anybody else out there who could be of help, you probably need to harden the way that we're handling it.
I do believe that the quiet approach is now over and done with. And that is why I have tried to make my story, have gone public with my story to gain extra support. It's not an easy decision. It's far from an easy decision to have to go to the media and have your children's photographs published in newspapers and TV. But I've been told by a very good source and someone that I would trust within the Egyptian legal system and government that being a nuisance is the only way forward for the right action to be taken.
Shouting loud and not going away, basically, yeah.
Exactly.
And in the meantime, you're sort of trying to work. You're trying to keep a roof over your head and for the boys when they get back.
Like, I try and think to myself that I have to remain a good role model for my children. As in they're the innocent victims in this story. And obviously we all know that lawyers are not cheap, so I have to keep my full-time job. Obviously I'm incredibly grateful that even my physical and mental health are still, I'm still in good health. Even though I do have some really, really horrible days thinking if my children are okay. However, I know that I know that my children are in the hands of people that don't really care. They're just using them as pawns, and they're still of the belief that they're going to get a cash handout.
You're sort of trying to untangle what's happened to you while you're still in the middle of it.
Yes.
You know, you're still facing a lot of trauma every day while you're trying to sort of untangle what's happened. How did you get here? I think it'll take getting to the other side of it before you have a full understanding.
It will really take to the other side. However, I've kind of immersed myself in my case. I've immersed myself in the whole, and I'm very passionate about parents getting justice who have been through this horrific ordeal. I know from even going to the media with my story, so many mothers and fathers have come to me, especially foreign mothers who have gone through the same ordeal in Egypt. And they don't come to me for legal advice because I'm not qualified to do that, but they do come to me. We share our thoughts on how we cope. We just check in on each other, and obviously we do pray and hope that day comes, that this nightmare is the only way to describe this. Like, I wake up every morning to this, and I cannot wait to the morning that I don't have to face this. And obviously I pray for the morning that my children are not stuck in a foreign land, obviously without their mother.
Yeah. So how can people contact you? Have you any sort of ways that people could?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I do publish my story on my Facebook page. You can search for my story easily on all social networks. So Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I feel it's very, very important for me to tell my story.
We don't want loonies contacting you now. We really don't. We want somebody, if anybody does get in touch, we really want them to be solid and to be offering some good advice or some help.
Oh, I've had very negative comments, and I do almost feel sometimes that I'm being punished from choosing to marry a Muslim. And I have been told this even by leading members. I won't elaborate further, but
like on that, I mean, you're telling a story that it doesn't matter sometimes the background of somebody, their creed, their culture, whatever. You're telling a story about a bullying, narcissistic criminal.
My children aren't in the hands of someone who is capable of looking after two young children. And especially
the cultural differences have given him the opportunity to take the children away from you into where he has certain, he has his mother, obviously. He must have a bit of a network, but it sounds to me like he doesn't have a very big network. He doesn't have a lot of money.
He doesn't have a lot of money.
He sounds like somebody that could be quite easy to find and to take the children back and bring them home to you.
I believe
if the right person gets involved and get the right piece of information that will,
close the case.
Close the case for them, that they will be able to find this man and they'll be able to get your children back home for you.
I do genuinely believe that there are some, even within the Egyptian government, that want this case to be closed quickly. And obviously as well, it's incredibly embarrassing for the good-natured, hard-working, diligent Egyptians that are even living here in Ireland.
For sure, I'm sure they're horrified.
Exactly.
As well as many have listening to this story.
Many have reached out. Many have reached out to say that they are absolutely horrified by the story.
Well, look, absolute best of wishes and luck to you, and we really hope that
Thank you so
be
much,
having
Nicola.
you back on here to tell us that this has been
that day will come, Nicola. Believe it or not, that day will come.
Well, here's hoping. And again, if anybody wants to contact you, they can do so on your social media.
Thank you so much, Nicola. Thank you.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.